Welcome back everybody. Okay, today we're going to fit the Duplex timing chain. Now this engine is a 1098. It came with a single timing chain. That chain is over here. As you can see, single chain, single sprocket. So the kit you get from ESM is comprehensive. You've got a timing cover gasket, you get the Duplex sprocket for the camshaft, the Duplex sprocket for the crankshaft. You can see it has the, well, maybe you can't see, but it has the dimples for the timing marks there. The Duplex timing chain itself, double timing chain. Two types of seal, a felt seal if you want to use it, or a rubber lip seal. I've already installed the rubber lip seal here in the timing cover. Just pushed it home with a piece of wood. You do need to make sure that the seal sits up against the shoulder of the timing cover here. So that one's ready to go. Then a couple of washers, lock washers. Here's a lock washer for the crankshaft and one for the camshaft. And then finally a couple of Phillips screws for countersinking. Now there is a modification you need to make when fitting the Duplex timing chain, the double timing chain, and that is this. This is an old front plate from my 948 engine, and this is a plate from the 1098. It is largely identical apart from the fact that 1098 has this extra piece welded on. This came out of a midget. I'm not quite sure exactly why that's needed, but anyway, you have to countersink these holes here, and the reason is that the kit comes with these screws. These are 28 threads per inch, quarter-inch screws, replacing these bolts. So these are the bolts that came with the car. The reason for doing this is because you need to give clearance between the chain and the plate, and so you countersink these holes. And when I looked at this, I did think that countersinking wouldn't leave an awful lot of metal around the shoulder here. So on the 1098 plate that we're using, we decided to braze on a little bit of extra material here. So we brazed that on last week, filed it down, made sure it's nice and flat on the back. Does provide just a little bit more material. I haven't heard of anyone doing that, but since we had the plate off, it was easy to do. People have said there's no need, but we did it anyway, and it's fine. It has enough clearance. Now, an additional thing we did was replace these screws with Allen head sockets, just so it's easier to tighten those up. Okay, so we're going to attach the plate back onto the engine by installing the gasket first. So one of the mistakes I made when cleaning up this front plate is I decided to paint the areas which aren't covered by the timing cover, which was a good idea, except it was a masking nightmare. And I found today that I painted over some areas which are covered by the gasket, which you really shouldn't do, so I've had to sand that away as well. So hopefully it'll work, but I think if I did it again, I actually install it on the car and then paint after, which is probably the sensible thing to do. So that's a lesson learned. Now this is where I encountered a real problem. I hadn't realized that the camshaft had moved slightly outwards. With all the movement of the engine on the stand, including the fact that at one point the stand tipped over, the camshaft had moved out. Now when I tried to fit that triangular camshaft thrust plate, I couldn't get it to bolt down properly, and I realized that the camshaft had moved. I guess it should have been fairly obvious. The thrust plate is there to actually hold the camshaft in. Anyway, I took a block of wood and I knocked the camshaft back into place. Then I could screw the triangular thrust plate down. I was a little bit worried that
I had broken something or moved something excessively. The people on the forums have been really helpful, and basically the answer was, look, get the timing gear locked down in place and then measure the end float. Now, this is something that the manuals don't really focus on. The manuals tell you what the end float is, and the end float is simply the movement of the camshaft in and out of the block, and it should be within a certain tolerance, 0.003 to 0.007. So you can only measure it once you've got the camshaft sprocket bolted down with the nut and the lock washer, and that's what we proceeded to do.
So we put this little brass shim in to elevate the sprocket ever so slightly to achieve the correct end float. Alright, so it's on 0, isn't it? So we should be able to move this up, right? It's hopefully only goes up by 5 thousandths. Oh, it went up by 5 thousandths. How about that?
Mercy.
Alright, now let's try pushing it down again.
We're not going to bang on it, right?
No, we're just going to push it down, right? Yeah. And then up again. Alright. Okay, so what we're doing is measuring the camshaft end float, and we're looking at that, and it goes up by 5. I think that's good. I think it's enough. Good.
Halfway between 3 and 7.
It's 5. Alright. Next thing we need to do is ensure that these two sprockets, the crankshaft and the camshaft, are aligned. When we did that, we did find there was a difference there. I'm not doing it now because this is not screwed down. And so what we need to do is put some shims under the crankshaft sprocket to ensure that these are perfectly aligned. Once that's done, then we should be in a position to put the chain on and move forward.
Ah, there we go.
So we've got a shim, a brass shim, which hopefully will elevate the crankshaft sprocket enough to get it in line with the camshaft sprocket. Let's see. The dots have to line up.
The keyways has to line up first, though. Come on. Is this the right direction? Yeah, this is right. Why is it so hard for me to do that? You do it so easily. There.
Okay. Alright, now let's get our straight edge.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. That looks
See any
pretty
light?
good.
I don't see any light.
I can't see any light. No.
Okay.
Alright, so those are now in alignment. That's good. Okay, so we're ready to install the timing chain. We've just added a little bit of assembly lube to the crankshaft and camshaft. Let's see how this works. Now I've got the holes lined up. See if I can get this to fit. There we go. That one's all the way down, and that is all the way down. And the two dots are lined up. Alright, I'll call that lined up. And goes the camshaft lock washer. Nut. Just going to measure the clearance there between the countersunk socket screw and the chain, and it's got to be at least 40, and I got that's 50 I'm measuring, and there's plenty of space, so I don't think it'll be a problem at all. Now I'm just going to check that it all fits back together. Here's the oil thrower. This is the more modern type. Has an F on the front, so that's where it should go, with the F pointing outwards. That seems to be okay. And then the cover will go on, and there should be sufficient clearance, and it feels like there is. So that's good. It's going to be good to go. Okay, we're going to torque down the camshaft nut here. count that as being torqued up. So this assembly lube is meant to be dissolved in oil. It's there to preserve the engine components until such time as you get the engine started. Now before we fit the timing cover, we're going to insert the pulley in the timing cover in that oil seal, that lip seal there, like so. That way it gets centralized when it's installed on there. We'll just leave that for a second. We're just going to clean up this face and get the gasket on. And the thing about this timing cover that might be a bit strange is that some of the bolts are 1/4 inch and some of them are the other sizes. There we are. There we are. Okay. So just tightening up the last few bolts. Torque specifications are 14 pound-foot for the larger ones and 6 for these. So my torque wrench unfortunately doesn't go below 20, so I'm just using feel. Feels about right. I don't want to go any further. Got to be careful with these smaller ones, these smaller 1/4 inch screws, not to bolts rather, not to strip the threads. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Just got to put the crank bolt on here with a lock washer, and then I think we are done.